Hello. How's everybody doing? Happy Monday. Happy, joy, joy. Did you see how round my head looks when I get that close to a fisheye lens? It's like, bro, what is happening here? Hello. Just a head by a nose. Exactly. All right, how's everybody doing? Happy Monday. John is here, and Tim, and Leroy, and Kevin, and Wayne, and Flavio is also here. And I believe Harley is here, yep, and Jason, I know, already uploaded. We got some photos in the share room already. So we've got all kinds of good stuff going on tonight. Hello, Ash. How are you guys doing tonight? How was your weekend? Let us know. I had quite the weekend. It was pretty fun, and I did quite a bit of shooting. So I'm gonna start with that, and then Mark, you can tell us what you've been up to. Everybody else, you guys can tell us what you guys have been up to this weekend. I had 2 photo shoots this weekend. One of them you may or may not have saw. That was live stream on the channel this past Friday. Angela came over. I finally got to use my 4-foot light tent that I built for her. That's actually now taken apart in panels, and I've got to figure out where to store it. Right now, it's just like over in the corner in the studio, but I'm going to keep it because why wouldn't I, right? I can use it for other photo shoots. But if you didn't see the shoot, Angela came over. We covered her in a mix of liquid latex and glitter. And then she climbed into the light tent, and we took a bunch of really, really cool photos. That was a ton of fun. And then it worked out really well. The only thing that at first I was very slightly disappointed about, but then it really didn't matter, was when I purchased the latex, I meant to purchase clear latex. And I went to Amazon, and I just went to my order history. Oh, God, I forgot to update your song again. I thought about that, too, when we were starting. I'm like, don't forget to update Mark's sound. And then I forgot to update Mark's sound. I'm such a horrible person. Okay, try that.
There, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's Mark. Okay, Mark is in the house now. Brenda, hello, and Janice, hello as well. What happened with Ash? Ash shot a music video on Friday at the studio. Then the wife's SUV starts leaking and is going to cost close to $1,000 to fix. Oh, thumbs down to that.
That's nasty.
Yeah, I know that feeling. We just, like, a month or 2 ago, we just had to drop almost the exact same amount, about $1,000 on our car, just to fix a couple of different things, including getting 4 new tires on it.
Yeah, the tires themselves can be expensive depending on what you have. So.
Yeah, exactly. John said motorcycled all weekend and bought a new Mac. That is awesome.
Yeah, that's better than having a leaky car everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, spend $1,000 or more on a computer, spend $1,000 on fixing my computer, or fixing my car. I think I want to buy the computer.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a no-brainer.
Right, exactly. Hello, DeMarcus. DeMarcus Green went to Chicago for Exotica and had 3 days of awesome pictures. That sounds amazing. That sounds super amazing. If you have any of those photos to share, we would love to see one of those. Tim also rode his dirt bike all weekend and took a couple shots of it too.
Nice.
That is very cool. So I had a second photo shoot this weekend. That's what I was about to talk about, where a new person that I have worked with, her name is Cecilia, came over, and we did a cosplay photo shoot based on a character from the comic book called Sandman by Neil Gaiman. If you've never read Sandman, it's absolutely amazing. Like, the story is amazing, and the art in the books is just, like, to die for. So I'm going to actually kick off the sharing with my photo, and then we'll take a look at Mark's photo, and then, of course, we'll start taking a look at all of your photos. So this is the out-of-the-camera shot that we did. So just a very little bit of background on this character. This character is called Delirium, and she's a member of the Endless family. Dream, death, destruction, despair, delirium, and I can't remember. There's one. I cannot remember the other one. But anyway, you get the idea. And she is sort of, you know, half there in the brain as Delirium. And we wanted to try to capture her character and her essence in this photo. These photos, really, we got a bunch of really wonderful work. So, quick look. This, whoops, I'm in the wrong place.
Okay.
This, as I'm switching it here, is the straight out of the camera shot that I just switched to prior to even the raw edits. So that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. And this is with just my raw edits to it. And then after my raw edits, of course, I took it into Affinity Photo here on my iPad and did my compositing, retouching, and things like that, and leading us to this final image right here. And what I did in this image, I'll explain a couple of things. In fact, why don't I just open it up in Affinity so you guys can see the layers and I can kind of walk through what I did with the photo. You guys want to see that? I'm going to show it to you anyway. How's that sound? Hey, Jason, and hello to Steve, who's joining us. This is the image, and this wasn't like a super duper intense edit, but I did do some stuff to it. So first of all, it was just like basic cleanup, of course, things like getting rid of the fishing line. Like if I zoom in here, you can see the fishing line that we used to suspend the fish from the ceiling. And so when I add in the retouching layer, whoops, that's the wrong one, I cleaned up the fishing line, you know, stuff like that. And then I actually wanted some more fish up in the upper part of the frame. So I went ahead and I grabbed some fish from some of the other photos that we shot and composited them in. And the reason I grabbed them from another photo is because they were on a clean white background, so it was just easier for me to cut them out than fighting with the bit of color in the background.
That's smart.
Yeah, exactly, right? It would have been easy enough to do that, but it was just easier against a white background. Right? And then things like softening skin and dodging and burning and sharpening up the eyes. And then my color grade. So I first did a curves adjustment to just crush the blacks a little bit, as it's called, to flatten the image out a hair and give it a little bit of that cinematic feel. And then I was looking at it, and as it is, the image is a little bit cooler, a little bit greener, a little bit yellower, just like this. And I felt like I actually wanted to lean in the other direction, more in the blues and the reds. So I added a gradient map adjustment layer to color grade it, adding, I'll show you the actual gradient that I used, adding some magentas into the shadows, some blues into the midtones, and then some reds into the highlight areas to give me this final look that we have right here. And I'm really, really very happy with this image and the whole shoot that we did. I've got a bunch to edit. We really, I feel, captured the essence of the character and had a really, really fun time with the shoot in general. I mean, as you can see, we made a giant mess. We, together, painted that backdrop, you know, with our hands making a giant mess. Whoops, I just whacked the microphone there. And just really had a blast. Because, I mean, how fun is it when you can make a giant mess, right? And act like a kid in your studio. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So that's my photo. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yep, that's cool.
Yeah, Steve says, doing some editing. Let me jump into the share room now, and we'll pull up your photo, Mark, so you can tell us about yours. Alrighty. So this is Mark's, whoops, that wasn't right. Load up the photo, please. Not sure why it's taking so long, but we'll see how long this takes. Let me try to open this in a new tab. It shouldn't be a problem. It's a 416 kilobyte image.
Yeah, it's not very big, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's opening up there. Why is it not opening up here? Hello, Sandy. Sonia says hello from Miami. Hi, how you doing, Sonia?
Hello.
Janice says it's an awesome photo, and Tim says turned out great. Thank you very much, guys. Hello, Classic Mama. Jason says just along for the ride anyway. And Wayne says, wow. Jay says, I like it. John says, I like it. I think I woke up to her once. That's super cool. Okay, this is not working the way it's supposed to, so let me open this in a new tab. There we go. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of an issue here, so I'm going to have to sort of round about this to share you guys, and I apologize
Cheat a little bit.
for the technical difficulties. Here is Mark's photo. Mark, tell us about your photo.
Okay, so this one was shot not the Friday we just had, the week before. I actually posted another one from the same shoot on in the group, and
Okay.
it got some pretty good responses. And just one comment is Mr. John Lewis. He had actually piped in and gave me some critique, which I truly appreciate, because quite often we post these things here in the group, and everyone is always, oh, this is a great photo, love it, love it, love it. But it's also good to get feedback, because we always give you guys feedback, so it's good for you guys to give us feedback too. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Exactly. And we're always open to that feedback. Like, I know that I'm not a perfect photographer, and I certainly critically look at my own work, but it's always good to get outside input on it too.
Yeah, definitely. But so anyways, this is one I took, and I thought it really was well suited for black and white. Just because it is a black sorry, I'm still fighting this damn cough, but it was a black dress, and nothing's really green here yet in our area, so I figured black and white would be a good way to kind of hide that, and it just seemed to work well. A lot of these ones that were in this set, I did black and white just because it seemed to work well. But yeah, otherwise that's about it. I can give the details of the settings.
Oh, I should have given the details on my photo too. I'll have to go back to that real quick after we're done here.
Yeah. So anyways, it was shot at ISO 400, 110 millimeters at 3.5, and my shutter speed was 1/1000th of a second. Now, ideally, my ISO could have been lower, but we'd actually just come from the shade and moved out here, so I missed changing it right away. But regardless, I still really like this photo, and at 400, you're not really see any grain anyways. But yeah, but that's sort of the story on it there.
Okay, yeah, it's very nice. I really like the pose as well. Janice said she likes how she's looking away from the camera. I like the way her whole body flows into this pose.
Yeah.
And up, and there's some angularity to it with her arm and her elbow.
Yeah.
And the other arm and the other elbow coming out. There's nice light in here. I think it's a really nice shot.
Yeah, she's fairly new at modeling, but she does a good job, I think, of getting the poses that she likes and that work with her.
Excellent, very excellent. Real quick, just so you guys know, I'm going to jump back and share the settings on my photo with you, and then we're going to get to your guys' stuff. So this was shot in studio with my Olympus OMD EM5 Mark II, of course. My camera settings were ISO 200, 1/250th of a second, and f8. And I used 3 Godox AD200 lights. 2 of those lights were in umbrella softboxes, pointed not directly at the backdrop, but at the backdrop and also at each other, so that their light would mix together across the backdrop. And then the main light was another 80. Those lights, by the way, were at 1/8 power. And then the main light was up above Cecilia in the 32-inch by 32-inch newer softbox that you guys saw me open up and almost slice open with my knife whenever that was a few weeks back, with the grid on it, pointing not quite, but almost straight down. It was a little bit in front of her and angled a little bit towards the back. So it was coming down at a slight angle, but coming down very much from above. And the reason we did that was to have those shadows cascading down on her to capture some of the sadness and melancholy that the character Delirium typically exhibits in the story in the comic book. So that's why we chose that lighting and that setup.
Cool.
All right, so let's take a look at your guys' stuff, and I'm going to refresh this and hope that the other stuff will actually work here. And starting with Jason's photo. Ooh, excellent, it is working. So this is Jason's photo right here, and of this, Jason says Composite eclipse photo from back in January. That's a loud truck.
I was going to say a Harley, but
that might be a Harley. So this was 255 millimeter focal length, shot on Jason's Canon EOS Rebel T6, ISO 800 or 1600, shot at aperture of f/22 and 1 full second. Mark, go ahead. This is a really cool shot. I'll let you start.
I definitely like the way it's put together and how it's gone through the different phases of the moon, basically starting with the blood moon, and slowly the blood moon disappearing and getting the sun on the different areas until it basically becomes the full moon or close to the full moon. So yeah, I do like the way that's thrown together. It's an interesting perspective for sure.
Yeah, I like this quite a bit as well. It's a really wonderful composite. And I like, too, the way you oriented this. Typically, when you see these kinds of composites of the eclipse, they show it in the arc across the sky, which is really cool. Like, I like those. But this is a different take on it. And I like the verticality of it versus that horizontal arc. Yeah. And it's interesting to me, Mark, that you kind of seem to start from the top and work your way down.
Yeah, you're the other way around.
Yep, exactly. Like I start at the bottom and I work my way up. So for me, like it starts with the big, bright, nearly full, original, normal moon. And then you move up, it gets darker and darker, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have this amazing burst with this blood moon right there. Yeah. So, however you flow through the shot, I think it's a really amazing shot.
Yeah, and, I'm actually, now that you say that, I'm actually curious as to what order, what is the proper order for these?
I think if you're looking at it as an eclipse, it would probably start with would it start with the lower one and then move through? Jason, you can clear us up on that. Jason also adds that I thought about the arc, but he liked this idea better.
Right.
And Janice says it's an awesome shot. John says it's pretty cool. Ash says, nice shot. Wanted to try Astro, but he says I would have to drive a couple hours to get away from all of the light pollution in Southern California.
Okay, so he's saying it's bottom to top.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was wrong.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's a wrong to it. It's just how you view the image. I mean, as far as like as an eclipse, sure, you're wrong but whatever, right? Jason says you typically see the full moon through the blood and then back to full. So technically, you can go either way. The blood is kind of mid eclipse, I guess. He says he didn't do the full cycle. He was cold.
Yeah, don't blame him.
Fair enough. Cochise Heart is here. Hello, Cochise. How are you doing? Yeah, Ash, I know how you feel with the light pollution. I mean, I live in a fairly small city, but even in a small city, it's a good hour or more drive to find a good spot away from all of the light pollution. It's really hard.
Even with me, I'm out in the country, but I'm still like 15, 20 minutes away from a small town, and even that you get a lot of light pollution from that.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to pollute the sky enough to ruin a shot that you're trying to get of the celestial bodies, whatever they happen to be. Jason says, I'm thinking of printing this one as well. Any ideas on size? I mean, no lie, I think that would look pretty amazing as a nearly full wall length print. I don't know if I'd go all the way ceiling to floor, just because having it look good with little or no gaps would be difficult, because most buildings aren't actually perfectly straight. But if you had, a few inches in between your ceiling and your floor or your baseboard trim, and you had like a nice clear wall, this would make a really impressive and pretty incredible, wall, like literally wall-sized print. And being a composite, I would think you could get away with it, because you're dealing with, let's go back here. That was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, essentially 6. 6 shots out of the T6. I mean, that's more than enough as far as resolution that you should be able to print it that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, hadn't thought of doing one that big, Jason says. And we got him thinking about it now.
Yeah.
All right. Ash says the Hoya makes a filter that helps with light pollution that I want to pick up.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I haven't. Ash, if you don't mind, like, popping into the chat, like, what the name of that filter is or something, that would be super cool. All right, let's move on to this next photo here. This one is Spring Point Ledge Light in Portland, Maine. This was shot last month at ISO 160 and f9 and 1/320th of a second. Fort George's to the left of the Coast Guard ship used the Nikon D80 and the Sigma 18 to 250 at 45 millimeters. And this is Janice's photo.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually quite like this photo. And I like the stone, walkway. I guess not a walkway, but whatever you want to call it. That basically leads your eyes out to the lighthouse, and then once you get out to the lighthouse, you see the boat, and then you see all the other stuff that's going on the horizon, and everything's all nicely divided into thirds as well too. So it's a very visually pleasing photo for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The obviously, like you said, the lead out into this shot is this enormous pier or whatever, like you say, whatever it happens to be.
Whatever the hell it is, yeah.
Right. And what's interesting about the pier is, it is comprised of all these different rocks. So it has an incredible like roughness and texture to it, even though you think of a pier or a walkway as something that would be relatively smooth and easy to traverse. So I find that fairly interesting. And then you get out to the stopping point, right? You hit the light, and that's a very like abrupt ending right there. And then you've got the boat, and then you have the fort. The fort is actually my favorite part because it looks like this crazy building in the middle of the is this a river or is this no, this would be the ocean, I would imagine,
or a lake or something.
In lake, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I suck at geography. I suck bad at geography. So
you're not gonna lie about that, are you?
Yeah, not gonna lie about that at all. But regardless, that fort out there is an incredibly interesting. It's in the Atlantic. So it's the ocean. To me, it's incredibly interesting, and it's a great contrast, right? Because you have the sort of earthy tones of the pier, then you have the white of the light, you have the white of the boat, then you have the earthy tones of that fort again. It's a really, really great shot. I really enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and having the boat there definitely adds interest to it. But even if the boat wasn't there, it'd still be a great shot too.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that the boat helps lead you into the fort,
right?
And it's definitely stronger for being there. But you're right. I think it would still work even without. Okay, so Janice says thank you. Jason says the boat is with the Coast Guard. Pretty sure it would be in the ocean. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, Wayne says it's a cracking shot. Oh, okay. Ash shared that. I'm going to make a note of this, guys. It's the Hoya Red Intensifier Filter for astrophotography. I am making a note because I think I want to grab one of those as well someday. Hoya, I don't know how much it is, but it's probably a more expensive filter, but whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hoya Red Intensifier Filter. Thank you very much, Ash. Appreciate that. For astrophotography. Otherwise, I'll be like, what did I write this down for?
Yeah.
Like, what does this note mean? I don't know. DeMarcus Green says, good shot. Jason had a question, wondering if it's cropped or if she composed it like this. Okay. Ash says, look up Stam Moniz. I'm going to jot that down as right. Is it Stam or Stan? Since he's on his cell phone, I'm imagining that the typing might be a little bit off. Oh, he has a coupon code. Oh, excellent. Okay, good. 4 coupon code. I'm just making all kinds of notes here, guys.
Janice says composed as is.
Excellent. Composed as is. Very, very cool. Wayne says it's a cracking shot. It's excellent. Oh, Janice says she has that filter and she uses it for foliage all of the time in the fall if it's the same one. Brenda says great shot as well. Very, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing this, Janice. All right. Our next shot here is these coyotes, which is pretty awesome. So I'm just looking for the information in the chat, in the share room, and I'm not seeing I'm not seeing any info about it, so I'm not sure whose this is or any data on it. But that's okay. If this is your photo, go ahead. Here we go. This is John's. John says this was shot at f5 ISO 800 and 1/640th of a second at 200 millimeters. It's a pretty intense shot, I gotta say. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great. The only thing that my only complaint, which isn't really a complaint, was more just a thing to pick up when you're shooting wildlife like this. I'm not sure if this is in a sanctuary or not, but even still, when you're shooting wildlife like this, you're basically kind of stuck with where you are. But the whatever that gray thing is, if it's a tree trunk or whatever, sort of in the middle of the frame, my eye does keep getting drawn towards it, but then the wolf at the front is so intense I keep going back to him. But I do find it a little distracting. But again, when you're out shooting stuff like this, you get what you get and you don't complain about it.
Yeah, although I would say like if you wanted to, you don't have to, because I agree with Mark. Like I noticed that as well, but that both of the wolves, obviously the front one in particular, is so intense, and the gaze is so powerful that, I mean, my attention is really strong there. Part of the reason the tree is catching us, and this could be actually a pretty small fix, is if you follow kind of the body of the wolf, right, you have the ears pointing up at this slight angle, and the one ear just connects with the striations in the bark. John said this is a tree. The striations in the bark moving up through the tree. So you have a very strong line there that works to pull your attention into that tree. And I don't know for sure, but I feel pretty confident in saying that if you just took in and went with, you know, the healing brush tool, the clone stamp or something like that, and just took out those darker bark striations that connect with the wolf's ear out of the tree, that would minimize the power the tree has in this shot, because it would disconnect it from the wolf, and our eyes wouldn't be as prone to flowing from the ears up into the tree because of that connection there. Yeah. So I'd be curious to see it that way. If you wanted to be even more aggressive, you could take the time to edit out the entire tree, but I don't think that would be necessary. Because again, that line is just that the connection of that line is so strong. I think that's part of what draws it in. Yeah. Were you going to say something, Mark?
No, I was just agreeing.
Okay. Harley says Photoshop context aware object removal. Yep, that's a good way to go about it. John said it's in the cemetery, so it's either a tree or a gravestone. Looks to me like it's probably more likely to be a tree, but I mean, I could be wrong about that. Either way, it is a super cool shot. Janice loves the depth of field in this, and I agree. Yeah. The depth of field, that shallower depth of field, is amazing. I love that second wolf is in the background too, because obviously something has their attention, and that's a really powerful draw across the frame.
Yeah, it's telling a story.
Exactly. It's telling a really powerful story, and I like that we can't see whatever it is that has their attention. I like that it's open for us to interpret. And the other thing that's really great about this is that front wolf almost feels as if it's coming in our direction, which makes this feel even more intense, because that front wolf was angled kind of outward a little bit, and that's really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. This is really great, John. This is a really great shot. I really like it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Jason says a slightly tighter crop could help. That's a possibility. I don't know if I'd want to come in too tight. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it the way it is. I think, because if you're going to crop, if you crop on the left side, you're going to end up, by the time you make any difference, you're going to be cutting his tail off. And on the right side, I like the open space there, because it sort of leads you into wanting to see what it is that they're looking at. Whereas if you had it nice and tight, I think it would just wouldn't float as nice.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. In some cases, a tighter crop definitely helps with these sorts of shots, but I think that openness helps give us context and grounds us in the scene with the wolves. Mm-hmm. John says, I get either trees or I end up with gravestones in the shot. So, it's kind of a horse apiece with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason says since this is in a cemetery, you could do some color changes or drop the background a bit more in exposure and make it a good horror book cover. That could, like a werewolf book cover or something like that. That could be pretty cool. It's a beautiful shot. Thank you so much for sharing, John.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Our next shot here is the biggest sugar maple, and the texture challenge had me looking around my yard for interesting shots. So this is a shot. This shot is a shadow of an old sugar maple, and this was shot at ISO 80 and f3.7 and 4.5 millimeters at 1/400th of a second. And I believe this is Brenda's photo, if I'm correct. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's Brenda's. So if I'm wrong about that, please correct me, whoever owns this photo. Yes, yeah. It's Brenda's. Okay, good. Excellent. That's what I thought. That shadow, I agree with what Harley just said. That shadow is amazing. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, this one actually reminds me of a shot I think I showed off in Photo Blab there maybe a month ago or so.
Okay.
It was an old tree in the fog, and the branches all kind of reached out over the lake.
Okay.
So it reminds me a lot about like that, because it looks like all the branches are reaching out to the one direction, and it's just
oh, I think I remember that shot now.
Yeah, it's basically just like a big old gnarly tree.
Yeah,
and so it definitely reminds me of that. And I also like the angle that Brenda shot it at, because you're starting at the big trunk, and then all the branches are branching off and pointing out of the frame to lead you into the background to start looking around at the other trees back there.
I 100% agree. John says what children's nightmares are made of, and Janice said my thoughts as well. She really likes the shot. Jason says it kind of looks like something is growing up from the ground. The way it flows in the frame is very good. It leads your eye all the way through the frame to the houses. Yeah, it really does. One of the other things I really like about this, everything that you talked about, Mark, I 100% agree with. The way it flows through, the way it's like all gnarly and grabby and scary and nightmarish. And one of the things that helps with that feeling is that it's off kilter. It looks to me like you're on a bit of a hill in the backyard there. So I'm not criticizing that this is a bit off kilter. Often we point out, right, when shots are a little bit off one way or the other, we'll point out, like, this feels a little bit crooked, it might be worth taking it straight. And yeah, so she says there is a slight rise.
Right.
For this it works really, really well, because the tree is flowing up against that rise, right? All of the shadow is. And that rise is kicking you back in this direction, which makes you feel off kilter. And that off kilterness, that's a new word, right?
Yeah. I'm sure it's a legit word.
Right. Augments the uncomfortable, scary kind of horror feelings that we get out of this. And like the buildings and stuff in the background are very nondescript, and they look, I don't know if they actually are, but they look as if they're collapsing. So it feels like a horror setting. And both Ash and Sandy commented that they wouldn't mind seeing it in black and white. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's the same with my photo. There's just like nothing's green yet, and there's no leaves growing yet. So it might be well suited for black and white, because there's no real punch to any colors to really drag your attention in there.
Right. So if you wanted to lean into that horror and that kind of scary feel, you could play around with this and give it a black and white treatment. That might look pretty cool. Sandy says the longest shadow leads to what I assume is the maple sugar shack. Oh, okay, okay. And Brenda says that she deliberately obscured. She says I obscured modern houses out of the shot, which is nice. Good. That good, I think would have detracted. Yeah, very good thinking. Let's see. And John says a bit of distortion. Trees on the right are vertical, and trees on the left seem to be leaning. John, that's not the distortion. That's the rise that I was just talking about, and the horizon or the ground literally not being level.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
If it was shot with a wide angle, I'm not sure if it was or not. I don't remember what you said, but
I mean, it is.
If it was, then you're apt to get a bit of distortion regardless.
Yeah, because it's a 4.5 millimeters. So if I recall correctly, she's using, I can't remember which point and shoot it is, but she's got a more of a point and shoot style camera.
Right, right.
Which those, there is some correction that's done in camera with those to try to fight that distortion. But when you're shooting wide angles like that, you'll get a little bit of that distortion. Coolpix 3700. Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. I couldn't remember which one it was. For some reason, I was thinking of Kodak, but I know somebody last week submitted a photo that was shot with a Kodak, so that's why I was stuck on that. All right, so let's move on to the next photo. Brenda, thank you very much for sharing this photo with us.
Yep.
This here is Flavio's photo, and let me find the information on this one. This is Gardamar Beach in Spain, shot with the 10 to 20 millimeter Nikon Sigma lens and the Nikon D7200 camera. The settings here are ISO 100, f9, and 1/50th of a second. This is a beautiful shot. Another beautiful shot. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a beautiful shot. Like the nice dramatic sky just really kicks it off, and then the ocean and even the nice shiny reflections of the water. I guess where it's been going out, so the sand is nice and shiny. I really like that. The only thing this definitely isn't a negative thing, but sometimes you see photos like this. It might be nice if you had like a bit of a dock or a pier, or even like an old branch that's kind of laying in the foreground to help lead your eyes into the rest of the picture. Like this isn't too bad because the reflecting water still kind of leads your eyes out there. But sometimes having an extra additional anchor there to have a little bit more interest in the foreground as you work your way through the picture. But it's still a great picture. I like the light in it. I like like I said, the dramatic clouds, the nature of the waves coming in and creating the drama in the waves as well too. Because in this case you didn't go with a long exposure to smooth it out. It's a nice. You're just capturing the power of the water.
Yeah, and for me, what I like about that, the power of the water, is you've got a ton of layering that's happening, both in the clouds and in the foreground, and everything comes together in the back there, right? So you have the water that's receding back out from the waves, creating that reflection and creating one layer. And then you have one band of water, then you have the frothy, stronger band of water, then it breaks again, then you have the froth again, then you have the dark blue, and that connects you with the clouds. And then the clouds sweep you forward with the striation in them and the texture to them, the openings in the sky. There's a really beautiful flow. A lot of this sweeps off to the left because the way the water is lapping up on the beach gives us a beautiful leftward flow. And then that sky catches you and brings you back into the right and sweeps you back through the image again. And this is just a really, really wonderful beautiful image. I know John said that he wouldn't mind having seen someone in the shot to give it scale. That definitely can work. I love that it's not that this is just a relatively pristine. I say relatively because it looks like footprints or something in the sand there, but exactly. Cochise Heart just said a perfect beach, no people, and I love that. I love the purity of it and the serenity of it.
Yeah, Flavio basically mentioned there's a 10-mile beach with nothing on it. So that was
gorgeous.
My point. So
yes.
So but having something else in there, so it totally
exactly.
makes sense.
Yep, 100%. So quick pause here. I asked in the chat, because I thought this would be fun, to hear what everybody's first cameras were. And I want to read off some of the answers. I shared mine in the chat, but I'll say it here too. Not necessarily. Michael just asked, assuming digital cameras, not necessarily, but like the first camera you thought of as like your real camera, so to speak, one where you like excited about the camera and you were taking photography seriously to some degree or another. Because I'm sure at some point, all of us had either, depending upon the generation, a smartphone or a quote unquote point and shoot film camera. If that was your era. I had one of those 110s with the cartridges when I was a kid, but I mean I was just a dumb kid and I wasn't like really actually interested in photography yet.
Right.
So like the first camera that I think of is like a real camera where I was like interested and serious about photography was the one I put in the chat. That was the Canon PowerShot A40, which was a 3.1 megapixel point and shoot digital camera.
Yeah, mine's actually this one right here, an old film camera, Pentax PZ10.
Nice.
It even still has the original lens on it, but it is kind of falling apart now. But
okay, that's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see what we got from everybody else. Oh, I want to read the comments about this photo too first before we talk about what we had. Brenda says she wants to be there. Kevin says very nice photo. Michael loves it. Hello, Michael. John says nice. We talked about how he'd like to see somebody in the foreground there. Janice says love the clouds and the peak of the sunrise or sunset on the right. Yeah, that's a very nice touch too. It's a subtle color, but it's a pop of color and contrast in that shot. And John also says great light in this. It's a really, really beautiful shot. Fabio says it was shot at sunrise. Okay.
Yeah, I really just like the drama in the clouds.
Yep.
The big thing, and then the drama in the waves also helps add to it.
Yep, 100%, 100%. Okay, so let's see what you guys had for cameras. Sandy says her first camera was a Coolpix back around 2010. Let's see what else here. Mine was the PowerShot A40. John's first was a Kodak Brownie. Ash had a Kodak Disc. I remember those. Those were weird cameras.
Yeah, my wife had one of those.
Okay. Scott had a Pentax. Hey, Scott, how you doing, bud? Scott had a Pentax 35 millimeter. And DJ's first camera was a Sony Alpha 200. And I'm going to say this wrong, and I apologize for saying it incorrectly. Moises, I'm probably saying it wrong, but Moises had a Sony A37. And Brenda's first was the Kodak 650 Easy Share. And there's a theme. A lot of them were point and shoot type cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Jason's first camera was the current T6 that he got about 2.5 years ago. Oh, Michael's was the Minolta D-Image or D-Image, depending upon how it's supposed to be pronounced, 7. And as you guys may know, Minolta actually no longer exists. It was bought by Sony and was turned into the current Sony Alpha line of cameras that we have now, which is pretty cool when you think about that. John says our cameras are giving away our ages, right? Kevin's was the Pentax K1000. Steve's was the D3300 from Nikon. Harley had a Kodak Pony 2. Michael says the first was the Canon AE1. I actually have one of those sitting right over there on the shelf. Not my first camera, but I have one, which is pretty cool. Brenda had a 110 Kodak. John's 110 said the 110 was the second. Oh, awesome. Janice says my 12-year-old D80, and she has two, and she's still using. That's awesome. Ash says, oh, then the disc wasn't my serious camera.
Yeah, well, I think my PZ10 was my first camera, but quite often I would have used my dad's old Minolta or something like that, or a point and shoot film camera. But as for my own, it would definitely be the PZ10.
Awesome. Yeah, I love this because when you get excited, even though when you look back, you think, God, that camera was
a piece of junk,
right? Compared to what you have now, right?
Yeah.
But
exactly.
That gateway is just so powerful, which is awesome. Ash said serious camera was a Pentax K1000 that I still haven't used. Brenda said the Coolpix 3700 got her hooked. John says first good one was a Nikon 601. And Wayne says mine was a Fujifilm FinePix F660 EXR. Love these camera names that companies come up with too, right? Like yeah. And Cochise said Fuji disposable because I had no money. Been there. Yeah.
That was like yesterday I was there.
Right, exactly. Leroy had the Nikon 8008. Hey, I Love is here, and I Love's second camera was the Nikon D80. Harley's first was the Canon AE1, which is sitting on a shelf. That's awesome. And Sandy's first serious camera was the Canon 50D. Still use it now for like the beach or rainy days because don't want to ruin my good gear, right? I Love's first camera was the Minolta 7000. That's super cool. I love this.
Yeah, but it's surprising, at least with the the more seasoned folks in here, meaning with that rolled. A lot of people seem to have started off like it was a 35 millimeter film camera. It was either a Pentax or a Minolta.
Yeah, that's pretty common. My first film DSLR, which I got after I got that Canon and was trying to learn more about photography, and digital SLRs weren't available to the quote-unquote consumer yet. So I got a Pentax K1000 as well at a garage sale, and I did some shooting with that on film, which helped me understand aperture, ISO, and shutter speed even better. And then when the Canon Rebel, the original Rebel, came out, I was able to purchase that. So that was my first digital SLR. All right, so this next photo here is Ash's photo. DJ had a question. Do you do this live chat often? Yes, we actually do this every Monday at the same time, 6 p.m. Central. That's 11 p.m. Zulu time. And we do this each week, every other-ish week, depending upon if we have a break like we will next week because I'll be on vacation. We do a themed challenge where we have an assignment. The current assignment, if you guys aren't aware, is story within a picture. And you can interpret that any way you want.
Story or picture within a picture?
Story within a picture.
Oh, I was thinking it was picture within a picture.
No, story within a picture, yeah.
Okay.
and you interpret that any way you want. And then the idea is that you actually need to shoot it within the time frame that we started the assignment until the end, rather than pulling an old photo. And then the other weeks, the off weeks like this, you can share whatever you want, and we talk about the photos. Exactly, free for all. And this is Ash's photo right here. Says Ash shot this with the Nikon Z6 in the studio using a Flashpoint 600 with an octabox above camera and slightly to the right. And then an Evolve or a Godox AD200 to light the background, and I think a bounce on camera right for a little bit of fill. And it doesn't have the EXIF data handy, but believes since it was in the studio, it was most likely shot at f8 and ISO 100 and a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, those settings would make sense for a studio. Yeah,
almost identical to my settings.
Yeah, and mine, but
right.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. It's a real nice portrait. I love her cheekbones. I always like it when people have cheekbones like that. I like the way the shadows are all falling nicely because the position of light and it's showing off the cheekbones so well, and also the jawline as well too. And I like how you have her hair going around all around to the one side and kind of draping over her shoulder like that. It's definitely a nice portrait. I like it a lot, and she actually looks very familiar. She reminds me of somebody, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, to me, she's evoking Betty Page, particularly because of the hair, but also her makeup look and even the style of her clothing is all a bit evocative of Betty Page. She was a pinup queen, if you're not familiar. And Betty Page actually was the model that inspired me and my interest in photography. So I love this photo, both because of that and what it evokes for me, and because it's a beautiful photo. And I agree with you, Mark. Like, I'm a sucker for beautiful, strong cheekbones. I love the way they catch light and cast shadow and help define and shape a face and structure. It's just really, really beautiful. Ash says she's in the SoCal pinup scene, so that makes perfect sense. She's probably deliberately trying to evoke Betty Page a little bit with her look, with her hair. That hair is the classic Betty Page look with the bangs like that and the beautiful cascade. It's just absolutely beautiful. The lighting is really gorgeous, and I love that you added that light in the background to create some separation between her and it. It being darker toned and her also having such dark hair and a dark sweater on, it would be easy to lose her into that background if you hadn't done that. So it's a really beautiful shot, Ash. I really love it. I love her smile. I love the way she's connecting with the camera. Great work. I love seeing you guys' photos. This is just always so fun. Thank you very much, Ash, for sharing this with us.
Mm-hmm.
Leroy says it's got a great look. I love, says Betty Boop. And Kochi says, nice portrait, great hair. Absolutely. Jason says, good work keeping your hair from fading to the jacket. That's a really excellent point. I love that there's just enough light catching in her hair that you see that detail, you see that texture, and you see the way it flows. And that helps separate it from her sweater vest or jacket so that it just doesn't become a massive shadow right over here. That's a very, very nice touch. Janice says, great style, great connection with the camera. I love says it's a good shot. John likes this one as well. Coach says, regarding the schedule, we do this every Monday. Just need chips and salsa with margaritas.
Yeah.
I did have a glass of wine before the show. Oh, hey, George just joined us. Awesome. Scott just asked a question. Why, when you upload one photo on Volafile, it tries to download the same file twice? I'm not sure why it did that for you, Scott. I think it does it to some people and not others. It might be like a connection glitch or something like that, but it's not a big deal because when I see it's a duplicate, then I just skip over it and we go on to the next photos. All right, so this next photo is actually Mark's that we looked at earlier, so we're going to move past Mark's, and this is Melissa Land's photo, and I know both Steve and Melissa are here. Is Maya here as well tonight, by the way, or is she still off in Florida? All right, so Melissa says this was shot on the new to her Nikon Z6, same photo, same camera that Ash was using. Maya's not back until next week. Okay. So this was shot at the Detroit Zoo, practicing with the camera, the Z6 with the Tamron 70 to 200 millimeter G2, and it was shot at ISO 500 f3.2 and 1/1600th of a second. Pardon me, with a focal length of 200 on the lens, and it was shot in manual, but she was using auto ISO on it. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm liking all these wildlife ones that we've seen so far, and this is no exception. It's well done, focus is spot on, and again, it's got the shallow depth of field, so the stones behind are starting to blur out a little bit. I like where that log is. It helps. Well, basically, we kind of start off at the rock on the bottom left corner, and we get the log, and just kind of again multiple layers. So it's a good example of using layers to tell the whole story, because you got the rock, you got the logs, and you got the bear, then you even got another log behind the bears, and then you finally have the wall there. So it's great, and I like the way the two are interacting with each other as well too. It's a nicely captured moment.
Absolutely. What I really like about that rock and the log up front is how it helps create the frame and helps give us a little bit of a boundary around them. That if it was like an openness, it wouldn't be a bad thing at all, but that frame helps set us into the scene and helps us really connect with the bears, I think. You've got a bit of framing going off on the right side too, with the shelves of rock over there. Now there's no framing on the left, but I don't think it's as necessary because the bear's butt is quite near the edge of the frame, so that creates kind of its own frame itself, even though the bear is one of the main subjects here. And the bears themselves are just absolutely, like, obviously they're terrifying if they're coming at you in, you know, a bearish rage, but the way they're interacting, I mean, they're adorable, right? Like the look on the bear's face that you can see, it looks just like what she titled the photo as in the upload, brotherly love. You know, just rubbing and connecting and having that you know, touch is such an important thing for animals, and, you know, humans included, because we're animals just like, you know, the quote-unquote animals are. So you can see that in the way they're interacting and the way the light hits them and the texture of their fur and the warmth of their colors and the way that contrasts with the quite cool and hard background behind them creates a really amazing contrast as well. So, you know, another beautiful photo here. This is really wonderful.
Yeah. Steve says it was cropped a little bit just to even it out. And I
okay.
think it's probably a good choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. DeMarcus says he loves the way the light hits the fur. And I agree with that 100%. Sandy says we have some roaming around where I live, but I'm too chicken shit to get out there and take the photos.
I don't blame her.
Like, I don't blame you either. I don't blame you either.
Yeah.
I would be scared too.
A 1,000mm lens from 10 blocks away might do it.
Yeah, exactly. Ash says this is a really nice shot. Steve said it was shot at midday. Coach East says, Hart says bears are awesome. Agree with that. DJ likes how the sun shines on the bear's back as well. So Steve says they were play fighting in the water for like 20 minutes before this, and he says it was funny as hell. I got video of it on the 500mm. That's awesome. I bet it was really great to watch that and be able to capture video of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Lewis says, I love this one. Scott says it's a nice bear shot. And yeah, Steve points out that there's not going to be a Blab next week because I'll be on vacation. John says, "Come on, I had to face down 2 hungry coyotes." Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the danger level, the coyotes, because you were in the wild, is certainly more dangerous than the bears at the zoo. So for danger level, John, you win. And both photos are amazing. Like, as far as the photos go, both are absolutely amazing. Michael says, "Smarter than the average tourist." Sandy. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so this here is DeMarcus's shot, and this was shot on a Canon T5i with a 70-200mm f4 using a soft box. Off to the side at a 45-degree angle. It was shot at f4, 1/200th of a second, and ISO 100. You'll notice, right, like, often you'll see studio shots have very similar settings, and that's because you have control of the lighting. So it's quite often the lowest ISO of the camera, often a middle-ish aperture like f8, f7.1 like we had, although DeMarcus shot this at f4, I'm sure because he wanted to let the depth of field fall out like it does very beautifully in this photo. So that's a really cool touch there. And DeMarcus says she was a fantastic model to work with. We had a great time. I can see that in the shot. Mark, I'll let you start with it.
I like this photo. This is a good example of some nice Rembrandt lighting too, because you get the triangle on her right side just below her ear. So it's basically you're pretty close to perfect Rembrandt lighting there.
It's beautiful.
That being said, I do wish she could see a little bit more into her eye on that one side, but I do know you're kind of going for a darker, more intimate look as well too. So it's sort of a catch-22 in this case, but
it might be what's coming through the internet to you, because when I'm looking at it, for me at least, it's certainly that eye is certainly a little bit more shadowed, obviously. But over here, without the compression of the internet, you know, doing what it does, I can see nicely into that other eye.
Oh, okay, fair enough then. But other than that, I like the pose. I like the angle everything was shot on, and the fact that the focus is on her face. But then as you go through, it's slowly starting to get out of focus, but you still know what the subject is.
Yes, you have more than enough detail in the background to understand what's happening here. I agree. This is just a really beautiful shot. I love the way she's posing and connecting with the camera. And I like the way everything flows. Oftentimes, like, you can get these shots that are framed and posed in this kind of way where the way things fall off into the background doesn't work quite as well. And sometimes it's because of the posing, sometimes it's because of the depth of field, sometimes it's actually because of the background and the environment. But what works really well here is the fact that you have a background that is darker and there is some light on it, so you can see some detail to it, which helps provide context, but it doesn't really draw attention away from her. The way her body is posed creates sort of a cascading series of shapes here, right? In the foreground, you have her and her arms creating this sort of arch, and then her hair creating some interest and breaking up that arch with the way it flows and cascades down around her face, with that being an arch inside an arch, right? And then you have the shape of her face, which sort of mirrors that. And then you have the shape of her bum in the background, again, mirroring that, but in a different way. So there's a beautiful set of layering that way, which helps you flow through the image even more. And the light that you have on this, DeMarcus, is really, really beautiful. A number of people have commented about the colors, which I agree with, and I love the way that tattoo pops in the shot as well. It's a really great pop of color that obviously, like, you don't add this, right? If a person has a tattoo, they have a tattoo. But I think it adds to the shot quite a bit. And just overall, I think it's a really beautiful shot. Like, I'm lost in her eyes, and I keep like flowing through the shot, but then coming back to her eyes because it's such it's well composed, well lit, and I really like the flow of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see here. Steve says it's got a nice soft feel to it. Michael says love the angle of the face versus the tat. Right. Oh, Edith. Hey, how's it going? Edith says she loves it. Lewis says, I like how the colors of the tattoo contrast. Exactly. Cochise Hart says, excellent colors. Jason also likes the colors and the way the light hits her hair. 100%. Lewis comments that he wants to see more of the tattoo, which I agree. But I love, whether or not you see more of it, I do love that it's there. DeMarcus says, thank you guys. First time I've ever shared a photo. Thank you for sharing it with us. I really do appreciate it. We always appreciate the opportunity to be able to share your photos back to everybody else and to be able to share our thoughts on them. I was wondering a little bit too. So John asked what she's touching, and DeMarcus said it's a flogger. That makes sense.
Oh, I just assumed it was a bedpost.
I thought it, like, just because I could see the handle a little bit and I couldn't see the rest as it falls forward into the shallower depth of field. I thought it was, like an umbrella or something, but that was just my brain not knowing and filling something in that it connected with. That obviously makes even more sense with the shot and knowing that it was shot at that Exotica convention that DeMarcus was at this past weekend. Ash says great colors and lighting on the hair and face. He says one thing that I find distracting is their bum is a bit hot. I can see what you're saying there. I don't have as much of a problem with that, but I do see what you're saying there with that, Ash. Didn't want to focus on it for this particular shot, DeMarcus says, with the flogger. That makes perfect sense. Okay, so this next shot, let's move on to the next shot. This is Lewis's shot right here, and Lewis says this is.
We did have one question.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, just make sure we get it before we get too far and forget about it. As I love just asking whether you shoot. I guess we shoot in sRGB or Adobe RGB.
Okay, so I shoot in my camera default, which is sRGB, and it's kind of a horse apiece on which you choose. They're both good color spaces. If you're not familiar, your color space is the range of colors that the device is able to capture and or display, depending upon if you're looking at your camera versus your monitor versus, whatever. And the sRGB color space is slightly different than the Adobe RGB as far as what colors are contained within it. I believe, if I remember correctly, that the Adobe RGB color space is generally slightly larger than sRGB.
Yeah, a little bit wider gamut,
Yeah, it's a little bit wider gamut. But, for me, I don't really... let me say this. I don't overly focus on that kind of thing. Once upon a time I did, and I got really kind of obsessed with color and trying to color manage my workflow and maximize the gamut and all of those things. And I found, for me, I'm not suggesting that everybody do what I do, but I found for me, the effort wasn't worth the time, right? It's kind of like, if you're not familiar with this, there's this thing called the Pareto principle, which is this idea of like getting 80% there, 80% of your effort, 80% versus 20%, right? It takes you... I'm totally going to botch this now, but the basic idea is that, like, once you get to a certain point, the gains that you get from the amount of effort you have to put out to achieve a thing, they start
so minimal.
exactly. And for me, like trying to have a perfectly color managed workflow with perfect colors and the widest gamut and all of these things, like that was just not worth the effort for the amount of return I was getting on it. And for me, it helps that the majority of the work that I do is not, it's not necessary that it be like color accurate. This came up before when we were talking about color a few weeks back, and somebody pointed out that like if you were working on a Coca-Cola ad campaign, right, you would need to make sure that the Coca-Cola red was Coca-Cola red. And I 100% agree with that. And in a scenario like that, having a perfectly color managed workflow is obviously very critical. And so I can get away with it because I do, you know, quote unquote more creative work, for lack of a better way to sort of define it, where the colors can be whatever I want them to be, and I don't have to worry about it as much, and that's why I work the way that I do. Ash says he shoots Adobe. Jason says slightly. I mean, it's been a long time since I actually compared the color spaces, so maybe I'm minimizing the amount of difference between the two. But the point that I Love makes is that if you are shooting in Adobe RGB, then your monitor also needs to support that same color space. Whatever the color space you shoot in is, your monitor needs to support it. And here, Jason's saying what I was about to say. One of the things to know about is what your monitor displays. It is fairly easy to get sRGB at 100% or 99% accurate. Getting a monitor that shows the full Adobe RGB gamut is very expensive. And that is another reason why I shoot an sRGB. Because I don't want to fuss around with buying a super expensive monitor.
The sRGB is just more commonplace too, and I think, if memory serves me right, I think whenever you export for the web as well too, it basically displays an sRGB. So if you're doing it in Adobe and then uploading it to the internet like Facebook or Instagram or whatever, then you could end up seeing some weird things going on because it's trying to convert things and it's not converting them the way you want to. And again, if you the same as with the monitor, I think your printer and your software, it also has to support the Adobe RGB as well too.
Yes, exactly. So you know, I don't criticize anybody who fusses, so to speak, over these things and wants their colors to be as perfect as they can be. I just know that for me, you know, I don't worry about it because it's not, to me, it's not worth my time and my effort and expense. So with that, and thank you for the question. Questions are always welcome, by the way. If we didn't make that clear, you're always welcome to ask a question, whether it's on topic or off topic, as long as it's like around photography, generally speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so back to Lewis's photo. Mark, go ahead.
This is a brilliantly captured family moment, because you get the mother there watching her son out near the ocean, just sort of keep an eye on him and watching him enjoy yourself. Watching him enjoying himself while playing on the beach, and it's definitely an awesome family moment for sure. It's one of those things that the parents, I'm assuming this is probably your wife and your son, but it's one of those kinds of photos that could be cherished for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And this shot like puts me there on the beach. It's interesting because the previous beach shot that we had made me want to be on the beach. This isn't a criticism of either of these shots, just a comparison of the difference between what we're seeing in a shot and how we react to it. And for me, because there are people in this shot, it interestingly helps put me in the shot and makes me actually feel like I was there versus feeling like I wanted to be there with that other shot. And I like the shot because of what you were talking about. You can see this as a family moment. You can see the person, you can see the woman there. I love that the wind's catching her hair and blowing it out. It adds some energy to it and reflects the energy of the ocean. She's got a very, what appears to be very intense gaze and attention focused on the child who is out by the water playing. And obviously, it's it's a little bit dangerous to have a kid playing in what I'm guessing is maybe an ocean, but whatever it is, it's a body of water, and bodies of water can be dangerous. So she's paying attention there. I like the colors and the saturation. And Lewis said, I don't know how far I should push the saturation on this one, and I see what you're saying, because with photos like this, obviously you want those colors to pop. And I'm a fan of pushing that saturation, but you got to be careful, because if you go too far with it, you can start to sort of break the colors, because if you overly saturate, then you can get banding, you can get breakdowns in the transition. So what I would say is, if you want to push the color, you can push that saturation, but just watch out for those things. To touch back on what we were just talking about, shooting in a wider color gamut makes it easier for you to be able to push those things, but also what makes it easier for you to be able to push those things is the bit depth of the image that you're working with when you're editing, right? So this isn't something that we've really touched on. I should probably make a video about this at some point. But the bit depth is essentially the amount of data that is captured in the image in your RAW file. And there are 8-bit, probably 12, but I don't think that one's as common as 14, and then 16-bit images or cameras that will produce those amount of bits in your... I'm not explaining this very well because I don't have my... But anyway, point being, more bits equals more data. More data gives you more latitude in being able to push things like that, because with more data, those transitions are easier to make smoother. With less data, that's where things tend to get choppy. So if you want to be able to do things like that, capture and work in the biggest and least compressed and most amount of data as possible, starting from the raw file, which is going to be whatever it is because of the camera, right? You can't like go into the camera and say, oh, I want to switch this to, whatever, 16 bits. That's like a default thing that's just part of the camera. But then, like, if you're going from Lightroom to Photoshop, as an example, in your preferences, you can set whether you want it to spit out an 8-bit or a 16-bit file over to Lightroom. And when you do that, if you want the most data possible, you should set that to be 16-bit, because that'll preserve as much, if not all, of the data that's coming out of the RAW into that file. And then when you're in Photoshop, you can work that some more. So, sorry about that little detour, but I thought that was worth talking about for a moment here. I love the colors in this. I love the subtlety of the colors. And John points out that subtle is good, and I agree with that. There's a very nice gradation from the sky. And what's interesting is what you essentially get here is an alternation. You get the sand, which is a warmer, kind of creamier color. Then you have the water, which is a blue, a very nice, beautiful blue. And then you get to the sky, which actually mirrors the color of the beach there, right? You get, it's not quite the same, but it's very close. It's a warmer, creamier color. And that moves through a nice, smooth gradation up into a blue that mirrors the color. Quite literally, the water mirrors the color of the sky. So I like the way that flows. And that's sort of like Rothko-esque, which I've always liked Rothko's art and use of color. And I think this evokes that a little bit, which is really quite beautiful. So thank you for sharing this photo, John. Or Lewis, I'm sorry. I was looking at John's comment. That's why I said that. Yeah. John said he loves the banding idea that I was talking about. That's what I was looking at. And Lewis says, I was on a tourist beach, so I had to move around to get a shot of just them without other people in the shot. Nicely done, because it looks like they are the only ones here. It's like they've got the beach all to themselves. Yeah, that's really excellent.
This is a perfect example of moving around and finding the right angle instead of just snapping the picture where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Janice says she loves the portrait orientation of this, and Jason says he thinks Lewis did very well. The color is great. John says, I like the photo. I don't think it's just family. It's nice composition, nice depth. Sorry. And it is his family, by the way. He says he didn't really think about that with editing, the color stuff that we were talking about. That's why I wanted to take a moment to talk about it, because a lot of people, if you don't, because I did my deep dive into color when I did, I'm aware of these things, and I do take measures to preserve that stuff. Like when I edit in 16-bit. You know, I work with the raw file because that gives you the most data possible out of your camera. I do those things to try to maximize the amount of data that I have to work with, so that I can, when I want to push the thing, you know, I push it more. I can push it. All right. Cyberdoc says, well, the ad isn't over yet, and already I want to triangle choke this mook making 6 figures in the advertisement. What ad is that? That must be an ad running across my video.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Cyberdoc. Okay, let's move on to this next photo here. This is, let me find
what time do you have to be out of here at tonight?
I actually have a little bit of latitude because my friend that usually comes over on Mondays so that we can exercise together is not able to come over tonight. So I'm still going to exercise after the show, but I don't have to rush away. So I would like to get through the rest of the photos.
Okay.
As long as you're okay with that, Mark.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm not seeing any information about this photo in the chat, so I don't know whose this is or what the settings are. But if this is your photo, please claim it. Yeah, I don't see any information on it. So yeah, if this is your photo, please claim it and let us know about it. Cyberdoc says number 11. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that means. Where can I send a freaking pic? Cyberdoc, here's the link. I'm going to pop it in the chat for you right now. Whoops. That didn't work very well. Let me try this again. Right, share here. There we go. Got it. Okay. All right, well, until someone claims this, we'll come back to it. And we'll move on next to, I believe this is Scott's photo that we're moving on to here. Oh, if I recall correctly, we saw that one before. Yeah, I think we talked about this one before, didn't we? Mark, do you remember if we've seen this one? Oh, not yours, Scott. Okay, sorry about that. Whose photo is this? Jason says, I do like the vignette, and I think the lighting is great. Yeah, on that one. Okay.
There's no information in this one in the...
Yeah, there's no information on this one in the chat either. It just says, sorry, I uploaded 3 files, but no data on the photo itself. All right, so again, yeah, it is cinematic. It is like from an old movie, and I quite like it. But again, if you want to claim your shot here, let us know the information. Same with this one here. If this is your shot, let us know. And I think we ran out of time when these were uploaded before, Vicky says. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to move past these. These are all from Moises, and we'll move on to the next shot. And... oh, the black and white. Okay, got it. Oh, Moises. Okay. Again, I'm probably saying that wrong. So we're just going to pick one because we asked that people just share one. So we'll start with this one right here. Moises, if you want to... oh, okay, and DJ's here too, and DJ says that's mine. Which one is yours, DJ? Let us know in the chat while we look at Moises' photo here. Moises, if you want to share a little bit of information on this, we'd appreciate it. If you don't have your settings, that's fine. Just tell us a little background behind the shot, and you can just put it right here in the chat. And while we're waiting for that, Mark, I'll let you go ahead. He says with the coconut tree. So that would be this one, I'm guessing? Oh, no, DJ says with the coconut tree. Got it. Okay, I understand what's happening here. Got it straight ahead. All right, so now this is shot with a, Fuji X-E2 with a 16 to 50 millimeter kit lens. And if you want to give us just any kind of background behind the shot itself, that'd be great. Mark, go ahead. I'm going to shut up now.
Okay. I'm always a big fan of black and white, so
yeah,
I like the black and white, and the fact that the sun is low on the horizon is giving some nice deep shadows to this, so it definitely helps. And this one has a lot of nice contrast to it as well too. So, excuse me, again, that helps. I like how you kind of have how you got down low when you shot this. Is you have the kids here and these rocks up above the horizon, and so it's drawing your attention to them, but then you can also see that there is water back there as well too. But it's yeah, I like it. It's nice. I like the composition of it. Basically, how you thought it out, the nice deep shadows and the black and white processing.
Yeah, I agree. In the chat, Ash said it's got a Lord of the Flies feel, which I agree 100%. And John said it's very cinematic, like from an old movie, which I also agree with. Moisey said, I took the photo here in, I'm going to say it wrong, but I'm guessing it's Olivencia, Olivencia, Brazil. It is a beautiful photo. It does have a very cinematic Lord of the Flies feel. And that gives it a primal feel. I think the black and white treatment works here like really excellently, like really great. And I also love the noise, the grain, the structure of this. It really helps with both the Lord of the Flies feel and with the black and white. Honestly, I'm not sure if you added the noise on purpose or not. Either way, I like it. I like it a lot. And those shadows are really excellent. Like you said, Mark, the angle you shot at this helps set the scene, gives us the setting. And because the sun is so low in the sky, it's casting those really deep, dark shadows, but you still have some really great highlights, which gives just a ton of contrast and also adds a ton of texture to the rocks, to this land, this outcrop that they're on. Like, this is really fantastic. The noise was added in Lightroom. Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Yeah. And John's wondering if it was shot with the black and white film setting on the XE2 or if it was converted in Lightroom. And
yeah, I think with this shot here too, this is the low angle works well because I think it would have lost a lot if this had been shot up higher, shooting down on them versus how it is now, because it basically gives them a sense of power because they're just higher in the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. So Moisey said he shot it in RAW, and then it was converted to black and white after in Lightroom, which you guys, most of you know that I'm not much of a black and white guy. Like, occasionally I do a black and white, but not very often. And in my opinion, the way to go about it is to shoot it in RAW. What can be very helpful is to actually set it to black and white in camera, but because you shoot in RAW, you actually still get the color RAW image. Just shooting it in black and white profile on the camera essentially gives you a preview of what the black and white will look like. And then when you download it to your RAW editor, Lightroom, whatever, boom, it'll come up in there as color. And the conversion tools, whether it's in Lightroom or Photoshop or something else, of color to black and white, give you a lot more flexibility in making the black and white look the way you want it to look, versus if you shoot it in like a JPEG or something where you're fixed to what is there in the image. So very nicely done. Like, this is really excellent work, and I really like it.
Yep.
Let's see here. Lewis said, is there a rule to quickly identify a scene that you could just shoot in black and white?
No.
Yeah.
I think images
with
a lot of contrast like this are more prone to being a good black and white, or if your photo and you take it like again, back to mine, there was not really much colors in the scene because it's still early in the year. There's no greens, so it's again a good candidate for black and white. But sometimes even I find if I'm shooting something and I just can't get the colors quite right because of maybe
throw a black and white on it, right?
Yeah, because like maybe you got mixed lighting or something like that, and you just can't get things looking right because of it. Then the black and white's a way to recover. And some images look great in black and white, and others just doesn't work. So
yeah, sometimes it's a bit of experimentation, but a couple of cases, like you said, high contrast. John also points out that silhouettes are often good candidates for black and white. Although if you're shooting a silhouette in the sunset that can be really beautiful in color. He said when the color is gross, right? Exactly. Like a joke in the photography world is, you know, if the photo isn't working, slap a black and white filter on it and call it done. But also in some cases that's actually true. Like sometimes when you're shooting sports and or concert type photography where your lighting and color varies wildly, and is a mixture of stuff that you literally cannot white balance away, like, you know, red and green lights, right, in a concert or something. You know, you could lean into that color, or you can go the other way and black and white it to kill the color play in the shot and just, you know, go for the scene itself. So those are kind of some ways to look at it, but it really varies from shot to shot, and it's really, in my opinion, it's two things. One, like, you can do a black and white thing here or there if it's appropriate, but I've always felt that consistency, generally speaking, in your work is good. And if you're experimenting, like, experiment away, right? Like, don't not experiment. Do experiment. Experiment a lot. Experiment all the time. That being said, I think kind of over a course of time, it's worth it to kind of understand if you're a person who does black and white or doesn't do black and white, and kind of stick to that. You can always vary from things, right? But generally speaking, I feel it's good to have some consistency to your work. And I say that lightly because I never want to make anyone feel like you're locked into a thing, because you should never be locked into a thing. Just kind of,
it's okay for your style to change gradually over time too.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so this here is DJ's photo, and DJ said he wanted to make a photo of the silhouette, which I think he nailed here. And this was shot at 40 millimeters at f/14 and ISO 100 at 1/80th of a second, and this was shot on the Caribbean. Go ahead, Mark. I'll let you start here.
Yeah, it definitely works well for a silhouette. I actually quite like it as a silhouette because you're seeing the light coming through all the palm tree leaves and everything, and you got these guys, this guy up on the ladder in the tree working away there. You don't see any detail of them, so basically it's a little bit of a mystery of what it is he's kind of doing up there. And this actually might even be a good example of something that might look good as a black and white, because the clouds are kind of, like, they got a bit of color in them, but not a lot. But if you went black and white, you might be able to get even a little bit more drama out of the clouds. I do notice on the right side there, you got a big spot, some sensor dust there, but that would be easy enough to clean up in Photoshop or Lightroom. But overall, it's nice. I like the fact that he was going for a silhouette and got what he wanted. That's perfect.
Yeah. Interesting. Just real quick, I wanted to touch on this. Harley says, I know of someone who is committed to black and white, shoots JPEG and has the camera set to black and white, no going back. And I respect that, right? Like, a person who knows what they want and can get it that way, like, that's great. That's awesome, and there's nothing wrong with that. So don't think honestly, don't think almost anything I say is the only way to do a thing, because it's not. Whenever we're talking about stuff like this, it's just to try to inform you, to help you guys understand how these things can work, and so that you can find your way to creating the stuff you want to create. All right. So the next photo, oh no, I got to talk about this photo. Sorry, DJ, I almost skipped my part of it. DJ said of this photo, it's not edited yet, but I'm just a beginner, which is fine, like, totally understandable. That is a thing that sensor dust that Mark mentioned is certainly a thing that's worth looking out for. And that's usually a fairly quick fix. And if you don't have, like, you know, quote unquote, you know, editing software like Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever, if you're just getting started, there are lots of apps, like smartphone apps, that allow you to do editing of that nature. In fact, one is Photoshop Fix, which is a free app available for tablets and smartphones cross-platform that would allow you to start playing with editing. Oh, so DJ has Photoshop 5 and Lightroom. Great. So you can get into that then when you're ready to. As a silhouette, I think this also works really excellently. I like that much of the foreground, all of the trees are dark. You can see some color. There's some leaves there that have some green to it. But I think if it was well lit, then it would draw attention away from this person that you tried to capture in the silhouette. Because everything is dark, it minimizes the chaotic nature of the trees and the organic nature of the trunks and the leaves and the sort of kind of craziness, so to speak, of that. And the framing here works really well too, right? This person is in the center of the frame. As a silhouette, naturally, you have to have a brighter background behind. But there's also, you know, a pretty nice size, almost circular frame of lightness behind this person, which is really, really great. And I like the way it sets off. I like that you've captured some action. We can't exactly see what's going on because it is a silhouette, but at the same time, this one arm is cocked back. So there's something that certainly is happening here that draws our attention and interest. And then the way the ladder angles up against the tree and kind of mirrors some of the way the trees themselves are angling also adds some interest to the shot. So this is really nicely done, DJ. And, you know, I think it's a really excellent silhouette, and it tells a really nice story. Thank you very much for sharing it. Cyberdoc says it took him 3 days to build the ladder. Meanwhile, us monkeys climbed up and stole everything and resold them to everything else at exorbitant prices. That's one story. And John says, if you squint at it, you'll see what it looked like in black and white. Yeah, that is a nice trick that you can do. I remember reading about that ages and ages ago as a trick. All right, let's see here. DJ says the coconut was nice. Awesome. John Lewis says he likes the shot of a lot. What else we got here? John says, oh, yeah, if you squint. Lewis says, I think something cool can be done with the blue from the water and the slight green of the leaves. While keeping everything else black. I would disagree with that. And here's why. Here's why. Right? The focus of this is the silhouette. This person on the ladder in the trees doing his thing. And if you do selective color, like on the water and the green, what's going to happen is that's going to pull attention in your eyes to those areas of the shot away from the subject here, which is this silhouetted person up in the tree. So think about that when you think about selective color. I'm not going to say don't do selective color. There are people out there who will say, you know, don't do selective color bad, blah 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 blah. Right? Like I'm not that guy. You guys know I'm not that guy. Instead, we need to think about the reasoning behind this and how our brains respond to these things so that we can use these in the appropriate way. And I think that's why this would be a poor candidate for selective color. Selective color, when done right, when thoughtfully thinking about where the colors are and what you want those colors to do, is the way to go about it. And Lewis says, damn, you're right. Scott says, good advice. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of Scott, this next photo is Scott. So Scott, if you could please give us a little bit of background behind this photo. Scott apologized for the date in the corner. Not a big deal. You know, obviously, if it's a thing that you want to remove, then you can set that in your camera to turn that off. But, you know, that's not something we're going to criticize here. And while we're waiting for Scott's background, Mark, if you want to go ahead and share your thoughts on it, we can start there.
Yep. Okay. We're getting lots of beach and animal pictures today.
Yeah, sure. A lot, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. But again, it's a nice beach. I like seeing the houses along the beach. It gives you a nice feeling of this is the beach you want to be on, because there's probably lots of parties and everybody knows each other and kind of like a weekend at Bernie's type thing. And I can't tell what that is that's just in the water there. I assume like a little dune buggy or something like that, with a little miniature camel beside it. But it's interesting. I like the horizon being on the third there, and then these houses also on the third. And it's one of these ones where you know they're probably on weekends and everything. They're having a good time here all the time.
Real quick, I just want to mention Cyberdoc's having these ads pop up, and I apologize for that. I am meaning to not have those kinds of mid-roll ads that break you out of whatever's happening here.
I don't think it's a mid-roll ad, because he's saying that we booted him again. Now I have to watch another 4 minutes of the ads.
Yeah,
So
I'm not.
so
Yeah,
whenever it's starting up, is showing an ad before he gets back into here.
yeah. Well, whatever it is, those ads are all supposed to be skippable on my videos, and I have it set so they're not supposed to like break into the middle of the video. But I'll have to look at my settings because I know sometimes YouTube just goes and says, "Oh, we're gonna just change these settings for you because we've changed the way things work," and not tell us about it. So that being said. This photo, I think, is quite nice. Cochise Heart says, warm tropical feel. It's a really nice shot. I agree. I like the way, again, in that other shot, the water's lapping up. And there's a different sort of layering here. Everything, though, moving you in this direction because we have the water and then we have the berm there with the buildings and everything angles to this point down below. But then there's this breaking point with that truck out there, which is a little incongruous, right? Because you've got this beach. And generally, you don't see trucks on the beach. Obviously, trucks go on the beach, and we can see that here. But it breaks the shot up, and it makes you pause and look at it. And then, because of that break, I noticed a seagull hanging out there, which is another point of interest. There's some really beautiful color.
Miniature camel?
What's that?
The thing I thought was a small camel?
No, no. That looks like a person sitting on a chair. I'm looking in front of that. There's a little bitty seagull just hanging out there.
Oh, okay. I can't see it through the stream then.
Yeah. I'm busting out the big words tonight. Yeah, I sure am. I read some dictionary before we started tonight. One thing I would say about this, Scott. Oh, and by the way, I should share Scott's comments on this. Scott said this was taken at Thanksgiving at Galveston, Texas. 1/500th f11 and on a Nikon D3100. So it is a man on a chair, and it is a bird that we're seeing there. The one thing I would say is with this, I would straighten this one. This is one where, to me, it feels a little bit like it's leaning off this way because of the way the horizon on the left is elevated and the way that berm slopes down to the right. And if you were to slightly straighten this direction to the left, that would level that out, and it would stop that shifting that our eyes do to the right because of that, and help keep the focus moving through the photo into the background rather than kind of slewing off to the right there. But outside of that, I think it's a really excellent photo as well. This is a situation too where you could decide, like, if you wanted to do things like if you wanted to give him a little bit more of an isolated feel. You could take a little bit of time to just kind of clean up these little bits and bobs that are kind of laying around on the beach, because my eyes going to them and I'm finding them a bit distracting. They break up the tire tracks in a way that I think is a little bit detrimental. Over here, having the truck and having the person in the chair, I think is a good break because that's a point of interest that's happening in the shot. But when it's just like a chunk of, whatever, seaweed or, whatever people are leaving on the beach, that's a good candidate, in my opinion, for removing a distraction. So that's something that's worth thinking about when you do sit down and take a look at your photos and thinking about editing them. But thank you very much, Scott, for sharing, and everybody else again, because your photos are always really wonderful, and we really enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This is a really sad but really powerful photo. So this, I believe, is Steve's. Yeah, this is Steve's photo. So let me find Steve's information here. This was shot on the Nikon Z7 with the Nikon 200 to 500 millimeter lens at 500 millimeters, f5.6, ISO 320, and 1/1600. Oh, he's sleeping. Okay, that's totally cool. Whew. That's way less sad. Now that makes it like super cute rather than super sad. Powerful. I mean, it's a powerful capture either way. I thought the animal was dead, and that made me feel really sad. But knowing that it's sleeping now, it's like super adorable. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, Mark, I'll let you start here.
It's another cute one to get another animal picture. So we're doing pretty good for these things.
Yes.
I can't tell from the low resolution. I'm not 100% sure whether or not the focus is on his face or whether it's on his one leg there. But
looking
you
at
could
it
probably
here, I
clarify
believe the
that.
focus is on his face.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean the leg is also pretty close to the same plane of focus, so they're both like pretty equally sharp.
Okay, no, that's good because it's hard to tell through the stream, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's a cute picture, and like someone said, you almost want to go up there and rub its belly and
Yeah,
kind of have a nap there with it.
that's
But
exactly what Cyberdoc said.
yeah, I like the angle because you're not looking straight down at his head. You're kind of following his body all the way through the image, so that helps add some depth to it. It would be a completely different shot if you were more to the left when you shot it and you just were shooting more down the body. I like it more like this because it's more appealing and you get to see more of the animal.
Yeah, this is an incredible shot, and Cyberdoc kind of nailed it in one there. Says, "Who cares about the details? Steve nailed this shot."
Yeah.
And I mean, in a word, you're right. Like, this is a super powerful shot. Oh, excellent point. Steve said, trying to teach the wife to get down and shoot animals and not top-down shooting, which is a point that I bring up often when I'm talking about composition. The tendency humans have to just shoot from that human point of view, that top-down, which doesn't make for very good composition. But when you get down, it's absolutely amazing. This is a beautiful, beautiful shot. Ash says it looks like me after a weekend of drinking. Yeah, that's hilarious. And Jason makes a really, really excellent point. Amazing how one small state change, our understanding of what's happening in this photo, some of us, including myself, thinking that the animal was dead versus just sleeping, changes how we react to the photo, how much of a difference that makes. It's really powerful. And one of the things to remember is that unless you convey that context some way, you can't guarantee how a person will respond to it. So without knowing that, I thought the animal was dead. You can you could title an image in a way to convey the idea, sleeping, I don't know what kind of animal that is, but sleeping kangaroo, whatever. Those kinds of things. And the stream DJ1. What did DJ say? I tried to get my wife down too. Oh gosh. Oh God. Okay, we're getting loopy now.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Steve says on the computer I can count the individual hairs.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. One too many Fosters. Steve, this is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. It's a really wonderful photo. The composition is fantastic. The detail is absolutely amazing. Excellent work. All right. This here is George F70 in the chat here, or in the share room. Shot in Rockport, Massachusetts, I believe. Remember, I'm bad at geography. ISO 100, f8, 1/250th of a second. The Canon 80D. This is George Fernandez's. Excellent. Canon 80D with the 17 to 40 millimeter f4 at 25 millimeters. Okay, Rockport's in Maine. Thank you, Cyberdoc. Told you guys I suck at geography. I have no idea where things are.
If I told you it was in China, you wouldn't have known the difference, right?
I didn't know it wasn't in China, but I mean,
Yeah.
Man, the colors are popping on this. Check this out.
I really like the colors in this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
The colors, the reflections, like it's like the boats have all these great colors in it, and then the buildings have all the great colors, and then the water is a nice poppy blue. It's just it's great. It's great all around. It's got the nice blue sky. This is a good example of one that you wouldn't change to a black and white because the colors have just so much going on here. You'd be crazy to convert this to a black and white. But yeah, it's wonderful. I like the way the boats are all pointing the same way, and it's just a nice smorgasbord of an image because you could be looking at this all day long and find all the different things going on in it.
Yeah, there's so much going on here. So it is Rockport, Massachusetts, apparently. So, hey, look at me knowing something about geography.
Yeah.
Lots of comments about the colors and how beautiful they are. George says this is a very famous building. It is called Motif Number 1, and it is the most painted building in the United States. That's really interesting. I mean, like, just the colors of the whole thing, like you were saying, Mark, are amazing. They're just popping and so vibrant and beautiful. And there's so much going on in this image. Like, there's a ton of vertical lines that keep catching my eyes, but then you have these horizontals created by the boats all pointing in the same direction, mirrored by that one little dock pier out in the middle there. Then you have this horizontal cross here in this other direction with the riprap wall and the buildings and the colors of those buildings and the colors of the boats, the color of the sky. Like, this is gorgeous. This is really, really gorgeous. The only thing that I'm noticing that's kind of drawing my attention out is what's going on in that lower right-hand corner there. It looks like part of a boat that is just caught in the frame there. And I feel that pulling me away from the rest of the composition. So I think that spot there would be a candidate for running over that with like a healing brush tool in Photoshop or something to just fill that back in with water. And because it's surrounded by water, like, that would be a super, super easy fix right there. Outside of that, I think
you could have even shifted your frame a little bit to the left, and then you wouldn't have cut off the back of that other boat too, and then you would have helped eliminate some of that clutter on that side.
Yeah. Lewis just said the same thing, moving out to the left a little bit to get out of the shot. Yeah, you could definitely do that. And I think somebody commented that it could go for a little straightening. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, the angle is what's giving it that slight slope down to the right.
It's hard to tell with this one.
Yeah, you could probably get away with bringing it up a little bit, but if you go too far, the boats are going to look a little off. So you got to be careful there. Sometimes you got to pick a line and just be okay with the rest of the world being crooked in your shot.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes sometimes. But yeah, this is a beautiful shot. DeMarcus says, agreed, take that out, and it would take this picture to the next level. And John was thinking the same thing as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Cyberdoc says, nah, come on, it was happy hour. Right. Okay, yep, so George already did his straightening and did exactly what I said. You pick your line and you make that one straight, and the rest of the world is whatever it is. George says, I picked the line at the edge of the red building. Good choice. Good choice. That's what you do. My wife hopped in. She says this photo is stunning. I agree. It's a lovely shot. Thank you very much for sharing this with us, George. And everybody loved the colors. It's popping. I love that pop. This is hilarious. Okay, I believe this is Noisy Mama's shot, if I recall correctly. I might be wrong, though. Let me see here. Canon 70D ISO 400 f5, 1/250th of a millimeter, 1/250th of a second, 85 millimeter, and I believe I took this with my Sigma Art lens, they say. And what do you mean the world isn't flat, Jason says? I said the world isn't level, which, I mean, technically it isn't, right? Okay, Noisy Mama says, yes, it's mine. And this is hilarious. Mark, I'll let you start. Oh, I think Mark froze up on us. Shucks. Let me see what's going on here. I think we lost you. Okay. While Mark is coming back in, I will share. Okay, George says he's got to go. Level, flat, same difference, right? Brenda says, love a family that plays together. Absolutely. And Cyberdoc says, thanks for this wintry capture. This is super fun and super funny. And I love that too. Like, I love the expressions in this shot and the playfulness of it. Everybody is clearly into this and having a good time. So it's very clearly a fun picture. That's pretty funny. John says the parents have zombie hands while the daughter has jazz hands, which I think you're right, and that makes it even more funny. The composition of this is really nice. I like the way the snow on the path helped set them apart from the background in the shot. I do think that the snow is a little bit hot. It's a little bit overexposed. And I don't know if you shot this in RAW or not, but it might be possible to bring back some of the detail in the walkway and path in white there, just to help make that a little less intense. I don't think it detracts too much from the photo because they are separated enough from that. But outside of that, like, this is a really, really wonderful shot, and it's super fun and super funny, which really I love. I think it's great. Was this shot at Schmeegly Reserve, Vicky? I'm not coming back, just died. Okay, let me see if I can get Mark back in here. So we can finish this off. I just got to paste him a link, and we can see if he can jump back in. Okay, yep, it was shot at a place called Schmeegly Reserve, which is at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And it's a really nice, big, beautiful nature preserve that people are welcome to wander into and enjoy, take photos at, and things like that. It's a really, really great photo. Thank you very much for sharing this, Vicky. I love it. Like I said, the only thing I would look to change if I could is bring down that snow a little bit. Otherwise, like, it's so fun and so playful that it's just fantastic. Let me see if Mark is trying to rejoin. Okay. I don't know if it's going to let him back in or not. Okay. This next photo, let me get this info here. This, I believe, is yours, CyberDoc, if I recall correctly. It looks like it did. Is this yours? I'm going to scroll back real quick because I believe you said the info on it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is yours, CyberDoc. So tell us a little bit about this photo. Nikon D810. Nope, that's the next one. Yeah, it's mine and ugly. Don't look closely. I would say that. Right? I like the shot. It's a longer exposure by the look of it. So, you know, there's a slight bit of motion blur there, but I don't think it's a problem because you're leaning into that, right? Because you have the motion. The setting here, this was taken a few days ago, CyberDoc says, in Richmond, Virginia. We partied all night. Okay, so a couple too many Fosters maybe, right? I like the fire, and I like the motion of it, and I like the warmth of it, okay? This is very... Hey, you're back! Yeah, we gotcha! All right. Let me just update the stream here so that I know you're out there in the world with us. Yeah, you're back.
Sure what happened there?
Yeah.
It said I was connected to the internet, but nothing was working at all, so...
Okay.
So well, I basically had to kind of disconnect from my connection and reconnect again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were just... This is CyberDoc's shot here that we're taking a look at, and CyberDoc's talking it down a little bit, which... You know, I mean, however you feel about your own photos is fine, but I always think it's worth taking a look and talking about the merits of any photo that you guys share. So this, what I was about to say is, number one, I really enjoy the warmth of this shot. The fire is being played with, so leaning into that warmth and the orange that is essentially washing over this entire image, I think adds to this and helps make this shot. DJ says the moving fire in the dark looks really nice, and I agree, it does. I like the way her body is moving and the arch and the shape that's created by what she's doing here. So, you know, it was raining out. Okay, I can see that on the ground as well. And this is a little bit more of a grab shot versus something that was fully set up, but even so, I think it's a really nice shot. I particularly love the motion in it, and like I say, the warmth of it and the way she's flowing in what she's doing in her movement.
Yeah, a shot like this under dark conditions like this can be challenging for anybody, so job well done just capturing what you captured too. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
CyberDoc says, I never set anything up. I'm raw. That's the way to go, man. Raw all the way, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sandy says it's not ugly. Even with all the clutter in the background, I don't find it distracting because it fits the street performer mood on the streets, and I like it. Yeah, I like it quite a bit too. I think it's I think it works, you know. I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good shot. I just noticed that guy hanging out in the background too. That's a nice little interesting bit right there.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was raining helps because it adds the interesting reflections on the ground as well too from the fire.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, CyberDoc, I think it's good. I'm glad you shared it. We appreciate all of the photos all the time, being able to look at them and share our thoughts on them.
Yep, definitely.
And rolling into our last photo of the evening. Whose photo is this? This is the Nikon. This was shot with the Nikon D810. Oh, hold on. We got a couple more comments coming in, so I just want to add. Jason says it's the whole street photography genre. No reason to capture, not to capture what's there in the street. Yep, I 100% agree with that.
Yep,
100% agree. Okay, so this is Rob's photo, and Rob shot this with the Nikon D810 and an 85 millimeter f1.8. The settings were 1/160th of a second, ISO 320, and f8 4.5. I'll let you go ahead and start, Mark.
Okay, this one is cute and adorable. I really like it.
Yep.
I love how you've used the monkey bars or whatever this is to actually frame the portrait like that. So you basically you're using what's there to frame the picture, and it works quite well in this case. It just adds. Again, it's another thing that seems to be a common theme this week too, is that a lot of these photos we're seeing today have lots of layers to them. And again, this is one that has a lot of layers and works really well. It's just a excellently captured moment, and I like it. I like it a lot. It was good thinking with the way you framed it, and it changes it from a great shot to a super great shot.
Yeah, like everybody else was commenting, the framing is really wonderful. I agree with everything you were saying there. There's a lot of layering here. And what's particularly nice about this framing is everything going on in the background is fairly vertical and fairly straight. There's a little bit of a bend to that one, but you get the idea, right? And then you have this beautiful sort of curvature of a frame wrapping around the child that is just like almost picture perfect, if you would, right? Rob says, I was worried about the top right. Interesting, right? That is something that you might think would pull away from your shot, but because you have this really amazing framing with the monkey bars, the playground equipment here, even though that is there, I don't feel it detracts from the photo.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and I think if you had pushed in tighter, I think it would be too tight. I think the framing would start to work against it, because the framing of the stuff around would start to become overwhelming in my opinion. I'm guessing, I'm speculating on it, right? But if just kind of by going like this, you know, this line across the top here starts to feel ponderous and heavy over him because there's almost nothing on the outside of it. Whereas when you pull back, because it's wider, that line is not quite so heavy, and that little bit of openness up in that upper right corner gives us the sense of that freedom and that world around him, and takes away that heaviness that I was starting to feel, you know, in my simulated crop right there.
Right. And even if that corner was bothering you, it wouldn't take much to even darken it just a hair. But I don't really think you need to, though.
Yeah, I agree. Super cute. I like this. Is, I'm sure, totally accidental, but I like that the shirt he's wearing very nearly matches the color of the monkey bars and everything else there, which I think is really great. You know, obviously he's out there having a good time, and you know, we got this look around, and it's really a really beautiful, candid portrait. I think Jason noted that there's a tiny bit of camera shake, it looks like. When I pulled in here, you can see it's not like, you know, quote unquote pin sharp. And obviously, you know, the sharper, generally speaking, the better. But that being said, it's certainly sharp enough that I think it's still a really wonderful photo.
Yeah, I've had pictures that have either, I guess maybe not so much in this case, he's saying motion blur, but where maybe the focus has been slightly off, where maybe it's focused on the shoulder versus the eye, and so it hasn't quite been pin sharp. But for the most part, the only people who really know and care about that are other photographers.
Right, exactly, right. Like the joke about pixel peeping, right? Like, is that sharp? So who's going to look at it like that anyway? Obviously,
yeah, exactly.
we do when we're looking at our own work, but it's always worth remembering that. And I know Jason wasn't saying that either, but yeah, it's really great shot. When I pull up the picture, it looks sharp. Vicky says that's good. Maybe I've got something going on with my pull of it here, but I mean, when I'm just looking at it, it looks more than sharp enough. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's a wonderful shot. Cyberdox is very sweet, and also says monkey bars and missing teeth. We can all relate. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's see, somebody just said something else that I wanted to point out. Harley said, and that open space on the top right is symmetric with the triangle on the left behind him, which helps bring this all together as well. So another really beautiful, really wonderful, excellent photo. Rob says he smashed his teeth about 20 meters away from this shot. That just helps the story even better. That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. So on that note, we are going to wrap this bad boy up. We went twice as long as we normally try to go, but I think it's worth taking the time to chat about your photos and share these, and I love that. Jason said, it's a great shot. It's one of those pictures you'll look at years down the road and have great memories. It's about capturing memories. Exactly. Yeah, it's really about memories.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. As always, we really, really appreciate this. If you guys want to support the show, you can go and check out my Patreon, or you can buy some T-shirts with the merch links down below. Otherwise, Mark, you got anything you want to add? Last words?
It was a good show. We're not doing anything next week, so
right.
We're just everyone keep that in mind, and then we'll be back the week after with
Story Within a Picture.
Story Within a Picture. That's it.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the photos you guys come up for the next assignment. Like Mark said, no show next week, no live stream, edit, or hangout, because barely I don't even edit anymore on Fridays.
Yeah.
So no live stream Monday or Friday next week. But
are you streaming this Friday?
Yes, I will be streaming this coming Friday. I think no, because we leave on Friday. Next Friday I will stream. This Friday I will not, because that's when we're traveling. So,
and where is it you're going?
Going to Denver.
Nice.
Yeah. So, all right. Enough blabbing, as it were. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate the heck out of you guys hanging out, sharing with us. Make sure you get out there and take some damn photos. Be safe. We will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.